All right, back live tonight here on In Focus. Parliament's Ad-Hoc Committee, a joint committee that is on flood disaster relief and recovery, has completed a 2-day oversight visit to Mpumalanga. It follows heavy downpours in the Gert, Sibande and Mbombela local municipality. Chairperson Jomo Nyambi joins us now for more on the meetings that were held there with the mayors. Good to have you, Chairperson, and thank you very much for your time. You went and did your oversight visit. You are satisfied, it says here, with the progress being made by the Mpumalanga municipalities. What is that progress? What have they put in place?
Good evening, my brother, and good evening to the viewers at home. Indeed, we are satisfied. We've been to Lekwa Municipality in Standerton, Sibande district, and after that we came to Mbombela in Ehlanzeni district, and were able to have an engagement where the municipality in Lekwa did a presentation to us. So in terms of our programs, we decided that after they presented, we went to the ground to see whether what was presented at the boardroom is going to be a true reflection when we went to check what has been done in terms of the sites. And when we were in Mbombela, we did the very same thing. MEC Kokta represented the Premier and his own department, and the executive mayor of Mbombela did the presentations. And after that, we decided to go and check those bridges that were damaged, the roads that were damaged, the pump station, and we're trying to reconcile what is on the ground and what was presented. And that is why we came to that conclusion that there is some satisfaction on our part about what has been done, even though not everything is 100%.
So the big issue then is around whether there is work you as lawmakers can actually do outside of the recovery processes to assist these communities, especially the provincial authorities. They're pointing to the question of Special Land Use Management Act, where people are building along the flood plains. What exactly is the work that you are saying as the committee you now need to do to address that?
There are some issues that are coming out in the experience of what happened during the disaster where we experienced these serious floods. And we have realized that the municipality, and in some instances where you have some traditional leadership, people are on floodlands. And once you don't address that, it means if we can wake up tomorrow and have some floods, we are going to experience the same problem. That is why, as the Ad-Hoc Committee, were very clear in making some recommendations that has to be attended by the relevant Kokta department in the province, working with the relevant municipalities. But over and above that, we still have to make the clear referral to portfolio and select committees of parliament so that they can monitor whether what is being recommended is going to be attended to, because it can't be business as usual once you pick the problem and not coming out with clear measures of mitigating factors so that you can assist the people and make them to understand. But one thing that is very clear is that as long as you don't provide that alternative place for them, we are creating a problem. So that is why the role that is to be played by both the two spheres of government, the provincial and local. But of course, as you know, that as lawmakers, as members of parliament, as Ad-Hoc Committee, our role is lawmaking, our role is public participation, our role is making sure that we do oversight in terms of what is happening on the ground.
Yeah. In terms of the infrastructure that is being restored, what about the people that would have lost their accommodation at this particular place? What work is being done to address their situation?
Because we have been to not only Mpumalanga, to other provinces, there was some temporary residential unit. Of course, we came to the conclusion that it's more of a temporal measure, as the name suggests, but over and above that, it's something that can be avoided if you can go and have a fully fledged structure so that you don't come back to address something that you address partially. That is why we are very clear that it will be good for the government to come with a permanent structure that will be a permanent solution. And of course, if a person was on these floodline areas, make it a point that you secure an alternative area. We've seen that, of course, in some other parts of Mpumalanga, where we went in Likwa, where we went in Mbombela. But there are some 1 or 2 areas where we've realized that we still have some people that are still stuck in those areas. We're very clear. Fortunately, the MEC was upfront to come with some measures to say the local government, working with officials from its department, must see to finish how they are going to deal with that situation. Because those people, once we are going to have heavy rains, it's another problem that we still have to deal with in future. But we are of the view that it can be avoided if we can stick to the clear recommendations to address exactly what you are raising, my brother.
Yeah. Moving away from the specifics of Mpumalanga, but let's talk about broadly the work of the Ad Hoc Committee and the report that you received. I think it was in August last year or so, around the inadequacy of the responses to flood disasters in the country in general. Saying one, the Auditor General saying it is too slow and it fails to meet the needs of affected communities at the time that they require it. What efforts have you put in place as a committee to, I suppose, address and capacitate those various areas that would need that immediate and quick response?
We decided to extend the invitation to all the relevant stakeholders, the national departments, the provincial departments, the organized representation of local government, SALGA. And out of that meeting, we're very clear that there are some instances where after the disaster, it took more than 6 months to have money coming in and assisting those municipalities and provincial departments. And it creates a problem because they have to do reprioritization, change their plans, and we have committed that we'll be building a road or we are going to build a hall in that particular village or township. And once you don't address that, because we have diverted the funds that were meant to address some other challenges because we are not getting the money as per the promise. So we're very clear that it's part of the experience. It was a good thing to have an ad hoc committee because out of it, we have learned and we are of the view that things cannot be done the same way because of that report and what we have picked up. The clear recommendations are going to make it a point that come even whatever that might happen after, like now, we're going to have the last visit in Gauteng next week. After that, we'll engage Auditor General so that we can compile a report and it will have even a legacy report that the 7th administration, 7th parliament will have something as a point of reference because the unfortunate part is that when we started from the scratch, but out of this process, we've learned a lot of things. There were commitments in terms of the funds, but how the money was going to be accessed by those local government was a real challenge. But because of our intervention, we made it possible to have the Minister of Finance, MECs of Finance in provinces, and the relevant municipalities where we experience these problems so that we can assist them to quickly access the funds. But one thing for sure that is very clear in addressing specifically what you have raised is that out of what we have done and what we have experienced and what we have made as recommendations, things are going to be done differently because we have a black and white clear recommendation and experience and the lessons out of what we experience as a country.
Yeah. What are the metros telling you? I mean, are they able, for example, to set aside budgets that would deal with these issues? Because what we are seeing now, of course, because of, you can say climate change, more and more a frequency of these adverse weather patterns and the damage that it is causing. Is there a possibility of being able to set up a disaster relief fund that is readily available so that one does not have to go through those budgeting processes and procurement processes that otherwise would require what is called multi-governmental intervention?
It's one of those things that are coming out very strongly, and we are aligning ourselves with that specifically, because once you don't have that contingency plan to address the reality, once you experience a disaster, it's a recipe for disaster. And one thing for sure is that we have learned that this thing of climate change is no longer an either or something that we can play with. That is why, as South Africa, out of it, we have realized that now we are in this time of the season. But last week it was extremely cold. It's clear that it's a reality. It's something that we live with, the issue of the floods, the issue of the storms that we experience. So it's a matter of must now that all these spheres of government will have something that will be budgeted for, even though it might not be at that level where we want it to be. But let's have something reserved to address challenges that we have experienced, because out of this thing we have learned, and we are coming out strongly with that specific recommendation as we are correctly identifying it and talking about it.
Mr. Nyambi, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on. That's the chairperson there for the Ad-Hoc Joint Committee on Flood Disaster Relief and Recovery following their oversight visit to Mpumalanga.